Everyone, this season, don't just watch the games, win them with Pez'sPicks.com. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the man himself.
Thank you, Jeff. This is Pez. After years of giving away our picks on Instagram and beating the house, we've launched Pez's Premium Picks, an exclusive data-based picks based on our algorithm that's hit winners for the last 2 years.
Didn't that algorithm get you over 70% picks right in the NFL last year?
That's right, Jeff. Thank you. No gimmicks, just the pick we believe in. We're using the promo code Lock It Up this week on Pez'sPicks.com. After that, we're asking for a small donation to keep beating the house.
That's right. Use the promo code Lock It Up, all one word, for a free week of access at Pez'sPicks.com. That's Pez'sPicks.com. Check it out today.
Hello and welcome into the Birds of the Round Table for yet another Tuesday night group therapy session. I am your host, Shane Haff. Give me a follow on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. Joined as always by the crew. First, we got Ryan Reese. Give him a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. Ryan, how are you doing this evening?
Doing a little bit better since the last time the three of us talked, but not by much.
We're hanging on there. We're looking at things on the mini buy and we're evaluating what we can do better and all that stuff. But yeah, also joined by David. Give him a follow at David Neese PHL. David, how you doing, man?
Better than Ryan. I feel great tonight. Yeah, I have moved on past that, focusing on the Vikings, but not sure we're going to feel much better Sunday at 4, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we will get to that. But before we do, we'll talk briefly about the Thursday night game. It always feels weird coming on a Tuesday night to talk about a Thursday game because it was just so long ago. But we're going to do it anyways. We'll give our brief takeaways on each side of the ball, as always, and then spin it forward to next week. So if you're watching live, drop some comments here. Let us know that you are tuned in. Questions, comments, all of that. But David, I'll throw it to you first. Let's go Eagles offensive takeaway. What's your offensive takeaway from the game?
That they can't run the ball effectively, and they look like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde out there, like they're one way for a half and then the complete opposite the second half. I was writing notes during the game, so I think this is correct. Barkley had 56 yards on 8 carries at halftime. Then he finished the game with 12 carries for only 58 yards. So he had 4 more carries for 2 yards in the second half. I don't even know how that happened. Some of it is play calling. I mean, you can point your finger everywhere, but, and it's not just the line because they wouldn't have got 56 yards on 8 carries if it was just, the line. Some of it's play calling. Some of it, the players mentioned, the third down problems that they're having. And of course, down in distance, the further you have to go, the harder it is to pick it up. But what they were mainly focusing on was getting the play call in time, then getting out of the huddle quicker because they're just telegraphing what they're doing by getting out of it so late. And then lastly, just executing. Y'all watch the film. I know Shane watches it a lot more detailed than I do, but there are plays to be had on a lot of these third downs, and they're just not making them. I mean, back-to-back weeks that could have changed the game of touchdown throws of 50-plus yards, and then a uncharacteristic mistake by Jalen Hurts in the red zone there, which would have, almost tied the game back up. But I think the play calling's erratic. I think that they play panicked at times. And to be honest, I think Jalen Hurts might be just too conservative at times, just too paranoid to throw the turnover. Now, I know throwing turnovers are bad, and I can't remember which quarterback told me this. May have been Kurt Warner years ago, but he said if you see a quarterback that's throwing interceptions, that's bad. But if you see a quarterback who's not throwing any interceptions, that's bad too, because it means that they're not taking any risks. They're not foreseeing the field. They're not anticipating. I think, the problems that offense is multi-layered.
Yeah, and I don't think the Eagles would agree with that assessment.
No, I don't either.
Yeah. Because they've pushed, if we don't turn the ball over, we'll win football games into a 2-game losing streak right now. So, yeah, I think that's all well said. Ryan, what about you? What was your top offensive takeaway?
David pretty much nailed it. I've often, and for a while, thought that this running game is the main problem. And in saying that, meaning like, I think they rely so heavily on this running game to kind of open things up elsewhere. And, you talked about that predictability, and I think when, you realize that, oh, well, they're obviously going to be passing here. They're obviously going to be running here. Defenses are able to kind of hone in on that right now. And even with that, as David said, that, Barkley still was able to kind of get a good first half in. So then that goes to the play calling, and that kind of goes to last week as well when, Barkley got, 2 carries in a half, which again is completely unacceptable. Even if you are down, you still should run the ball. But yeah, I think to kind of add to what David said about being conservative and not wanting to push the envelope, I think we've certainly seen Hurts is a little bit more on the cautious side in general, but never this cautious. And I think that is probably in great result of Patullo and this offense. I think he feels that it's up to kind of him to mitigate a little bit of the predictability or the late play calling or whatever issues you have with with Patullo in this offense. I think he is trying to lessen the degree of which this offense is struggling. And in turn, by doing that, is creating more and more problems, as David kind of referenced. But I don't know. It's hard to get a beat on this offense. 1 second they look like a normal offense, and things are working. And it could be drive to drive, it could be series to series, and then the next they look like they've never played football together before, and it's frustrating. That's for sure. I know fans out there are just as frustrated, and obviously the players are frustrated too. So something's got to give. I mean, I don't know how much more of the old Albert Einstein quote of, expecting the same result by doing the same thing over and over again, or expecting different results by doing the same thing over and over again. So something's going to have to give soon.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say for a takeaway from the offense. I honestly didn't take anything away. It's the same stuff that I've been talking about every week the entire season. And people told me it didn't matter when the Eagles were 4-0, and now they're 4-2, and it looks hopeless. And it's the same issues it's been the entire time. It's all of the details. It's all the little details. I mean, from a 3rd and 8 in the game where you run A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on 3-yard hitch routes to a mesh concept you set up with Dallas Goedert and Jahan Dotson where they're not even close enough to like reach out and touch each other, and a guy shoots right through and nothing's open. It's just all the details aren't there. It's really bad, and it's not going to get. I don't think it's going to get better. With Kevin Patullo still being the guy calling the plays, and I think it's a massive mistake that they didn't move on from him over the mini bye. But I guess something individual to this game that I'll point out is that the Eagles have a big problem with Landon Dickerson out because Jordan Mailata and Brett Toth cannot pass off stunts to one another. There were so many times the Giants just kept running TE stunts. So the tackle penetrating first and the edge rusher looping behind him, and they just could not pass those off. I mean, we'll get to the preview in a little bit, but if I'm the Vikings, I'm just running a TE stunt every play at Brett Toth until they figure out how to pass it off, because they didn't show signs of being able to do that in the Giants game. So that's something the Eagles are really going to have to look out for. Whether that means they keep a running back in to block all the time, it seems like, whether that means there's a running back scanning for that or what, but that's something that they're going to have to get straightened out while they buy some time for Dickerson to come back. Let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. Really embarrassing performance defensively. And we can add the context that Jalen Carter is inactive with a heel injury, and Quinyon Mitchell leaves in the first quarter with a hamstring injury, and that's 2 of your best 3 players off of the field. But you're still facing a Giants team that got beat pretty handily by the Saints last week and is missing Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton. And so there's no good excuses for that. But the Eagles just get out physicaled in this game. And I think everybody that's played team sports has been involved in something like that at some point, where for whatever reason, your team is just not clicking on a specific night and it snowballs and it gets away from you. And you hate to see it, but I'm a lot more willing to just throw the defensive performance out and say they're going to come out better next week. But the thing I want to talk about defensively is Andrew Makuba, who has really struggled over the last several weeks. He's making a lot of mental mistakes, busting a lot of coverages, some poor tackling attempts as well. There's one where he's got Cam Scatterboo squared up, and he just kind of like dives and like throws his upper back into him, doesn't try to wrap him up, and he needs to be better. And he has played bad enough that benching him would be warranted. I don't think that's the approach, though, because he is a rookie and you don't have much behind him. But he's a rookie that's playing in a complex system, learning on the fly at probably the most difficult position in that defense to learn. But they need to see some improvement there, and I think they will. And I think the secondary will improve simply because of that as the season goes along. But my biggest defensive takeaway is just that Andrew Makuba has really been struggling the last few weeks, and hopefully they're able to straighten some of that out. Ryan, what about you? What's your top defensive takeaway?
Yeah, it's a shame considering how well he started, and he's definitely cost the Birds some points. That's for sure. Yeah, I think it's just in years past when we have an injury or two, it seemed like we always had the right combo of guys stepping up to do just enough to get us by. And it doesn't seem like we have that anymore. You mentioned Q, that being the most damning injury, considering what we have behind, with Adoree and Ringo playing one of the worst games, I think, I've ever seen two starting outside cornerbacks play together in a game, and so you combine that with not having a Jalen Carter there. So now everybody's kind of trying to pick up the slack there. And, so, you're already thin at edge. And so your strongest unit is linebacker. And I thought Zach Bond did not have a good game. I thought this was probably one of his worst games that I've seen him play since he's been an Eagle. And yeah, obviously Campbell's still kind of figuring things out. So, not necessarily blaming on him for anything. So again, that was kind of like a snowball effect with the injuries. Q going down, I think was the most damning thing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You can sort of hide Keely Ringo, Adoree Jackson between Q and DeJean. Having them on the field at the same time is rough. And if it was rough against practice squad receivers, let's just wait till we talk about Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. But David, what about you? What was your top defensive takeaway?
Outside of Makuba, the defensive issues are twofold for me. One, when the offense doesn't bully the opposition with ball control and time of possession, the defense struggles. They're on the field too much, and they're not flipping the field as much. The defense just, they work better when the offense is playing a certain way and the defense is out there for 25 minutes. It just functions better. That was the, recipe for success last season. And secondly, I know it's not popular to criticize Howie Roseman in the front office, but depth is killing them. I mean, last year at edge alone, they had Sweat, BG, both gone. Huff, who wasn't very effective for the Eagles, but he was supposed to be, a significant addition at the time. He was supposed to be a contributor. Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith were, brought in kind of slowly. They had Milton Williams. They had Slay, Isaiah Rodgers. But this year, all of those spots are unproven players. All of them are unproven, or towards the end of their career, like waiver wire guys, like Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo, Brian Young, Ajomo. And they're taking and eating significant snaps. And, even Za'Darius, who's now retired, and Uche, the rotations, it's just not as strong. And this is a team that won Super Bowls due to their depth. especially in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl. They didn't have anywhere near the talent on that team that 2024 team did. But what they did have was tons of depth everywhere. With Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount, they just had a very strong rotation. And this team cannot absorb any injuries, as we saw with Quinyon Mitchell. They have nothing. I mean, last year you had Slay, you had Isaiah Rodgers. Now Slay and Isaiah Rodgers are Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson. And that is a issue. It is a huge issue. And and the draft as well. I mean, last year in the draft, Quinyon playing right out the gate. Cooper, as soon as he's healthy, right out the gate. Jalen Hunt, their third pick, successful right away. This year they have Makuba struggling, Jahad Campbell, who, has done a really good job, but that's it. They're getting production nowhere else. Prior to this week, Ty Robinson had 3 defensive snaps the whole season. Mac McWilliams, Smile Mundone, Hinton Williams, APR might not even be on the roster. Kyle McCord, not on the roster. I mean, the last 4 draft picks, not even here. I mean, this was not the offseason that everybody applauds like the one that was, a year prior. This has really been hurting them. And I don't know how you fix that. I mean, everybody wants Howie season for the trade deadline coming up, but he hasn't been that great during in-season trades. I mean, Golden Tate and what was the other guy, defensive guy? I can't even think of his name, but I think he came from the Lions also. But just none of them have really worked out. I mean, it's just been really rough, and I think ultimately that's what their Achilles heel is this season.
Yeah, you're right. The depth's not there, and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. I think what the Eagles lost in them was underestimated by fans for sure, and perhaps by the front office too. Although, I mean, they were never going to keep either of those guys at that cost. And so it's not a fault for letting them get out of the building. There's just not necessarily much that you could have done about it. But I do think the defense, the pass rush needs to be better, but I do think it will be once Nolan Smith's back and if Jalen Carter gets up to speed. But it's gotta start with Jalen Carter being dominant, and he just hasn't been this year like he has been in the past. And so, hopefully we'll see him get back into form as the season, as we go on. And the good news is, Cowboys and Commanders both lose this week a lot, and the Lions lose. There's a lot of not very good football being played by supposedly good teams right now. And so the Eagles are 4-2, and hopefully they can push out a couple of wins here getting into the bye and, see what they can do down the back half of the season.
Can I just comment, I guess, on Za'Darius Smith?
Yeah.
I feel like, to me, and I think you both know me, that generally speaking, I'm a pretty positive a person when it comes to the Eagles. I feel like this might be more damning than anything for a player. And again, I could just be reading the tea leaves the wrong way, but for a player to just up and quit like that. Now, it's not like, he wasn't an older player. It's not like, none of that, but something to me tells me that he probably saw what was going on with this team. And that tells me there might be some issues going on with culture, with the locker room, with stuff like that, he was just, I don't want to be a part of this. He obviously was playing at a well enough level. He was getting sacks. He was our best edge player. And, you just up and quit. Now, again, I could be completely wrong. And let's be honest, I certainly have my fair share of being wrong, but I don't know. Something about it is more scary to think about the reality of why he truly quit than maybe some of the things that we're able to see physically on the field.
David, do you have any take on the Za'Darius Smith thing?
I mean, the Eagles' stance and what he said when he left was that it was for personal reasons. What that means, I have no idea. Could personal reasons be in the locker room? Could they be?
Yeah, personally didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, I have no idea. But that was basically his entire statement, was that, it took him by surprise as well that he had to leave for personal reasons. That's it in a nutshell. So I have no idea what that means. It could mean a plethora of things. I don't know. But
yeah, I think where I'm at is I'm just not going to read too much into it. I think it would be exceptionally strange for a guy to join a squad to ring chase and then just leave because the culture is so bad 4 weeks in because you lost 2 games. That seems strange to me. I feel like it's more likely that he got back into it and wasn't able to do what he thought he would be able to do, or maybe there's an injury thing that is just not worth it for him to push through at this point, and he's not long-term invested because he just signed a couple of weeks ago. I took it as more one of those things, but honestly, I have no idea. If what Ryan's saying is right, then yeah, that would certainly be really bad, and we would
pretty damning.
Yeah, especially because the defense should be fine. Like, it was a rough game for the defense, but outside of that, the defense has been fine this year. I guess maybe he could come in and just be one of those guys that does not get along with Vic Fangio, because we know those people exist in the league.
Yeah,
so
they absolutely do.
It could be something along those lines too. I don't really know, but it definitely took me by surprise. Yeah. So I don't know.
I think it took everybody by surprise. Again, I think it may have took him by surprise as well. That is the sense I got. It was not a planned announcement.
I'll take that and I'll swallow it.
But I have no idea what that means. Again,
yeah,
you don't know what he was told. I have no idea. But
yeah, right. I
it
just
seemed
know
like
that
it was.
There is a lot of
my
things.
read was it was as much news to him as it was everybody else.
Like I said, I just know that there's a lot of things that we aren't privy to seeing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In a day-to-day basis behind closed doors of again, and even with media there, how players are told to act. And then the second they leave, who knows? Maybe they're at each other's throats.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe they're, who knows? Maybe they're having a circle, a dance circle or whatever it's called. I don't know.
We find out 2 years later typically, but yeah.
So tune in October of 2027, and we'll get back to you on that one. But let's go ahead then. And anything else you guys want to get out before we flip the page to this weekend's matchup?
No, I just hope that this game was enough to embarrass the crap out of them. That they lost to the Giants, who have looked awful this year. Hopefully that's enough to give them this entire mini bye to show some pride in their work and to do the little extras to get themselves back, because that was an embarrassing loss. This was supposed to be the year that they had a possibility of sweeping the division, and if not, definitely the Giants, and they already ruined that. So I think they should have some pride. And hopefully that carries them to maybe a little bit work hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's spin it forward to this upcoming matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings are coming off of their bye week after getting a win against Cleveland. They get the bye week, and now they host the Eagles on Sunday. Let's go top matchups to watch. Eagles offense against the Vikings defense. David, what do you have for us?
I think it all, like we said last game too, it all comes to the run game. If they can't establish the run, nothing else works. I don't think the Vikings are that stout against the run. It's a game where if you're going to finally stick with it and stay with it, assuming everyone is healthy, which I'm not completely convinced they are, but assuming, Barkley's knee isn't acting up and he can take on a 20-plus carry workload, I think that's what they need to do. They need to go back to what worked last season and, expect them to open with tempo, but
I think they could beat Temple.
I think probably.
Yeah. They could probably even run against Temple.
If they had home field advantage.
Yeah.
Nice.
But, they need to, run them between the tackles. And I know everybody doesn't like that. They want more outside. But Barkley prefers to run that way. He was highly successful at it last season. And they're going to have to find ways to do it without Landon Dickerson and without Mekhi Becton. It's week 7. They don't have the excuses anymore. They're going to have to start leaning on this. And Patullo is going to have to quit panicking. I mean, they get down a few points and it just completely changes the game plan. Against the Rams, it changed it for the best, but in all the other games, it has been a disaster. So it seems frenetic and panicked and just disorganized. The way the plays coming in, the players don't even know what's supposed to be done. They're out of the huddle late, like I mentioned earlier. They're telegraphing plays. I mean, it's just been really bad. It's been disjointed. It's just ugly. And the one thing they can control is to just pound the rock and play off of that. And I think that's what they need to do.
All right. Yeah, I'll second that, echo that, I guess, because Brian Flores is the king of lining guys up across the line and then either blitzing or bailing out. And the Eagles have had no idea what to do if you line guys. That's the best way to attack the Eagles. Put 6 guys on the line, bail 2 of them off, and you're going to be rushing 4 against 6, and you're still going to get a free runner somehow. And that's what teams have been able to do to the Eagles. And so one of the negatives of that approach is you're allowing free access to your linebackers from offensive linemen. And so the Eagles need to be able to take advantage of that. They need to be able to run the ball, and they need to be able to stay out of 3rd and longs, because I do expect this pass rush to tee off on the Eagles if they get into those situations. So my top matchup to watch is Flores's pass rush design against the Eagles offensive line. And if they're able to get into the right protections and if they're able to get into the right down and distances to be able to avoid Flores taking full advantage. So it goes along with the run game, kind of like you were saying, David. That's what I'm watching as well. Ryan, what about you? What's your top matchup to watch?
Yeah, if I'm not talking about the run game, which I think we can all agree that right now is pretty darn paramount. But I'll say Jalen Hurts versus the Vikings, and by that I mean I think the Eagles have had their most successful offensive playing when Hurts is feeling very comfortable in the pocket, where he gets the time to be able to, figure out, coverages, and also, being able to run when he actually needs to. I feel like last couple of games, he hasn't really had those open lanes necessarily to be able to do that. Now, obviously, certainly defenses like to take that away, but generally speaking, when Hurts, I think is kind of feeling it, he creates that himself, and just that alone, I think gives the extra element of unpredictability of, well, obviously this is going to be, a pass or blah, 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 boom. And there he goes and runs. So I think it's Jalen Hurts kind of, being comfortable, honestly, and being able to counteract what Flores and the Vikings defense throw at him.
All right. Then let's flip it over to the Eagles defense and let's talk Eagles defense top matchups to watch. And since David is as absent as the Eagles offense in the second half of football games right now, throw it to you first.
I think this is all going to be reliant on Quinyon. You have a matchup with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, who are 2 very, very good wide receivers. And, you have Q, who obviously is one of the better young corners in this game. And if he's out there, awesome. I feel 1,000 times better. But if he's not, I mean, it's going to be all hands on deck. Throw every person out there, throw some fans out there, whatever you got to do. Just somebody, wrap themselves around Justin Jefferson's legs, because at this point, nothing's going to stop them. They're going to just do whatever they want. And run game be damned. I'd be lining up throwing it 60 times a game if I was going up against Adoree and Keeley. So hopefully, hopefully Q being out there and the combination of Coop handling some of it can mitigate the impact of those two, because they're going to get theirs. If Q's not out there, they're going to eat all day.
Yeah, and they haven't had a great run game over the last couple of weeks. So I would imagine a lot's going to come through the air. And we don't actually know who's going to be playing quarterback for him in this game. They're coming off of the bye. J.J. McCarthy had, I think it was a high ankle sprain that he's been dealing with. Carson Wentz has been dealing with some soreness in his non-throwing shoulder. He was the quarterback for the 3 games before the bye. So, we could have a Carson Wentz versus Philadelphia game coming in here on Sunday. And, like you mentioned, Quinyon Mitchell playing is huge for this game, because I go from feeling good about the defense to really bad about the defense, depending on if Quinyon Mitchell is out there. Because again, we saw what the practice squad receivers for the Giants did when Quinyon was off the field. But if you put him on the field and you can let him travel with Jefferson, all of a sudden things get a lot easier. And so, we probably wait with bated breath on that injury report. And that is the biggest thing to watch for the Eagles. I mean, I guess obviously the Jalen Carter thing too, but I didn't get the vibe that Carter was really in doubt for this coming week. I thought it was a little more precautionary and about the MetLife turf, honestly, on a short week, that he didn't play against the Giants. And truth be told, I think the Eagles thought they could win without him. And that's not what came. I think maybe a lot of the players thought that too. And we saw how that played out. And we know what kind of a player Carson Wentz is. He can make some really good throws, but he can also stack up sacks in a hurry. And, right now the Vikings have 3 offensive linemen that are questionable as of, pre-bye week. Donovan Jackson, Michael Juergens, Brian O'Neill were all questionable for their last game. So coming out of the bye, you would expect them to be as healthy as they're going to be for a while. But this is a game where you need Jalen Carter to take over. And you need some pass rush to really apply pressure to, assuming it's Carson Wentz, but it really doesn't matter because J.J. McCarthy is going to be, he's essentially still a rookie out there that hasn't played very many games. So getting pressure up front and Quinyon Mitchell playing are the biggest things in this game for me. David, what about you? What's your top defensive matchup to watch?
Fangio versus the quarterback, because I think the main storyline outside of Quinyon playing revolves around Minnesota's quarterback situation. Like you mentioned, McCarthy's missed the past 3 weeks with that ankle injury. Wentz would be making his 4th straight start, but again, he's dealing with the sore left shoulder. The plan doesn't change much regardless for Fangio of who the Vikings have at quarterback. You try to keep containing, eliminate the big plays, and make them earn everything instead of giving up, those shot plays. Whoever starts is going to see a steady diet of disguise coverages and late rotations designed to force mistakes. If it's Wentz, the Eagles know him well and his aggressive tendencies, and hero ball can turn into sacks and turnover opportunities really quickly. And I think that's how they, try to stay in the game is, just forcing them to do something silly to try to take that extra shot and to force them into a turnover situation. That's, how they've been doing it. And you mentioned Carter and trying to get some interior pressure because I don't know where it's going to come from the edge. No, Nolan Smith out, Zadarius Smith retired. I mean, you're looking at Jalix Hunt, Uche. You're going to hope Aziz, just didn't flash in that one game. You're hoping that's for real. But, I've long believed that the Eagles were, suffering more with interior pressure, mainly from just losing Milton Williams. But the edge has really become anemic really quick.
Yeah. Man, I would sure love for this to be like a 4 or 5 sack game.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that make you feel so much better?
I mean, Wentz is the guy who could, allow that to happen. If there was ever an opponent who could, give you what you want, he's the guy.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, there are so many things that if we listed all of the problems that the Eagles are having right now, I just would love to see any one of the plethora of things to just show some promise and show some hope of like, well, hey, maybe there is still some promise in whatever, A, B, or C. Whether that be the pass rush, whether that be having a good game offensively for the entire game, whether it's the run game, whether finally having a Saquon Barkley game. There are a ton of those things that I'm pretty sure we could sit here and list, and I would just feel so much better. Even obviously win above all, but I'd like to have a little hope moving forward.
Yeah. Well, maybe this will be it. Carson Wentz saves the Eagles season, turning in a 7-sack performance, and it'll be great. So let's flip it over then to our predictions. We will go player of the game predictions. We're going to go with our score predictions. David, I'll throw it to you first. Are you breaking the streak of literally never picking against the Eagles, or have you talked yourself off that ledge?
Yeah. If the Eagles have Quinyon Mitchell, I'm picking the Eagles to win 23-20.
That is
If
that is the question, isn't it? Is Quinyon Mitchell
Yes.
going to play? This is the problem with the Tuesday preview show.
Yes. If he doesn't, I do think they're losing. But I will make my prediction just under the assumption that he's going to play. And if he plays, that, eliminates a lot of stress and worry for the Vic Fangio defense. And in that scenario, I'm going to player the game with Cooper DeJean. I'm looking for him to bait throws as they could swing the game. He's always around the ball, and I'm just looking for him to deliver a game-changing pick six off of Carson Wentz late in the fourth quarter, and they go home 5-2, reminding everyone that their defense isn't just opportunistic, it's also dangerous, and they get back on track.
All right. Ryan, what about you? Who's your player of the game prediction? What's your score?
David kind of stole my thunder there. It's definitely a Q dependent prediction, but I'll use the same thing. If Q is there, I do think the Eagles will squeeze out a victory. I'm going to go 24-23 Eagles, last second field goal to win it. My player of the game, I'm going to go Dallas Goedert. I like the matchup he's going to have against some of their linebackers there. And Dallas, honestly, has been exceptionally good when he's been in the game. I think he's had a fantastic year. So I'm going to keep riding that.
All right. I struggle with this one so much. I'm going to take the Vikings in this one. I think I'm concerned about Quinyon Mitchell not playing. I'm equally concerned about Quinyon Mitchell playing, but just not being fully where he needs to be. A hamstring is a potentially big deal for a cornerback. I want him to play and I want him to be healthy, but if it's borderline, I'd rather him not play because that could become a lingering thing for the year. So I'm going to take the Vikings. I'll say they win 24-17. And for player of the game, I'm still going to pick an Eagle for player of the game. I'm going to take Jalen Carter. I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to be rested. And I think he's got the potential to feast on a QB with bad pocket presence playing behind a bit of a banged up offensive line. So I think Carter and the defense will have a good game. I just really worry about this Eagles offense and ultimately Justin Jefferson on the outside. So I'll take the Vikings in a painful nail biter. So, all right. Well, there you have it, folks. Our takeaways from the Giants, our preview of the Vikings game. Hopefully we are back here next Tuesday night with a Victory Tuesday instead of conducting group therapy. We can certainly all hope for that. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to thank all of you guys that are here live. Brett Eclipse, Brandon, all of you guys in the comments here. I thank you guys for chiming in throughout the show. And let's throw it around the horn for some final thoughts here. Ryan, I'll throw it to you first. Give me your final thoughts. Anything you want to plug, the floor is yours.
My final thought is, we could be the Browns. We could be the Saints. There are worse off situations. We are 4-2. And I know it feels like we're looking at a team that's 1-5, but we're 4-2 regardless. We're still atop our division. There is still time to figure things out. Remember, it took us a couple of games to figure things out last year, and then we just went on a tear. So maybe we just got to get to our bye. Maybe the bye is the secret. Maybe something happens during the bye.
Bring on the week 5 bye next year.
Yeah, seriously. So keep having a little bit of faith. I know there's not much left, but have faith. Other than that, check me out tomorrow, going live with my co-host Eric for a 5:30-ish football smack talk show. Party on Broad is back. If you didn't missed it last night, Mondays 8:00. Rob and I took a few weeks off to reorg and move forward. So check that out, and please make sure you guys are following Shane, David, everybody else, and of course Eagles Pinpoll wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google, Facebook, YouTube. Follow them all.
All right. Good stuff there. And yeah, be sure you're checking out Ryan's show Monday and Wednesday. He's got shows on the network. So be sure you're catching those live. David, what about you, man? Final thoughts, plugs, the floor is yours.
I see a lot of comments about this is the Eagles 2023, and I just don't agree with that. I think 2023, they had essentially two incompetent coordinators. And, this defense is legit. Their offense has a lot of playmakers. You have to assume that Patullo and Sirianni will at some point get things working. I mean, Patullo not only is calling the plays, but, they sold this fan base on the fact that he was the architect of a lot of the plays that, Kellen Moore called. And it just seems that maybe he stepped in it a little too soon. And again, we hit on this last week. You are very limited in late February about trying to find somebody. So they just went with continuity and what they had in the building. But you have to think that this, team can find a way to be better. I'm not saying they're going on another Super Bowl run. I mean, the odds of doing that, even with competent offensive coordinators, is very difficult. But I would not feel as downtrodden as the people who think they're about to just completely spiral out of control. And, I believe that they're, still very much in the hunt, very much going to win their division. And you look at the landscape of the NFL, the Bills just lost 2 in a row as well. Josh Allen has not looked good. I mean, the Cowboys and the Commanders are not pushing Philadelphia. There's really not that team in the NFC who's, just super dominant. So I don't think this is that. And, I would just be along for the ride, try to stay positive, see where they go. Again, I know it's struggling with, Patullo calling the plays, but you have to assume he finds some sort of sequencing soon.
Yeah. My final thought is I'm with Brandon here. Nick needs to shave his head again. It's worked in the past. Let's go back to the well, and
I agree.
We can make this thing work. So good stuff, guys. Always enjoyable hanging out on a Tuesday night. Sometimes more than others, but we won't let an Eagles loss get in the way of us enjoying some sports talk here, and hopefully our listeners are the same. If you guys want some more Eagles content, be sure you check out the Eagles Pinpool Network wherever you stream your podcasts. Lots of stuff coming out. Johnny and I dropped our film review today. If you want more film stuff, come check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Eagles Film Room. I dropped like a 40-minute past game review this morning, and I tried to go beyond, like, I'm searching for new ways to talk about this offense, so I'm not saying the same thing. So I moved to, like, I just went through a lot of plays, and it was like, I don't really like these designs, but here's one route you could change in this design that would improve it a lot and make it more tenable. And so I went through that with some different stuff. I at least enjoyed it. I wasn't rage watching film at that point. I was creatively, like, trying to problem solve, which if Kevin Patullo's listening, I highly recommend creative problem solving. But so you guys go check that out. You can grab a free 1-week trial. Don't pay anything. Go watch it. See what you think. I think you'll want to stick around. But that is
I was going to say this off camera, Shane, that I've been watching those for the past few weeks. And this week was by far the most enjoyable watch that I have seen from all of them. I really liked the way you broke it down this week. So for all of the listeners, if you do want the free week, this is a good time to do it because it was a really educational breakdown. I really enjoyed that as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was like, man, I really don't want to just rage through film. There's already enough negativity about it. And so that's what I kind of came up with
let's just keep positivity.
Let's keep the core concept and change a route and see how we could stress the defense better. And so I will hopefully the Eagles don't roll the same thing out on Sunday. But if they do, that's probably what I'll be doing next week. So yeah, it sounds counterintuitive to want to go watch a film breakdown from this game, but it is the film breakdown I'm most proud of so far this year. So I would recommend y'all go check it out. And I do have a clip of it up on my Twitter timeline if you just want to see a small snippet before you maybe go grab that free trial. So that is going to do it for this one. Stay tuned. Mark and I are going to be going live here in the next 5 to 15 minutes, depending on when I get a hold of him, and we'll be breaking down week 6 around the rest of the NFL. So come hear us talk about all the other good teams that lost, and maybe that'll make you more encouraged as well. So that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys all for joining. We will catch you guys next time. Go Birds.